us say amen.
Thank you. And our prayer for the state of Israel is on page 178.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzu Yisrael B'Goalo, Barek et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geolatenu, Hagen Aleha B'Avrat Chazdacha, Ufresh Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlak Orcha V'Yamatcha, L'Roshea Slareha V'Yatzeha, V'Takneim B'Yetza Tova Milfanecha, Chazek et Yidei Beginei Eretz Katshenu, V'hanchilem Elohim Yeshua, Yateret Nitzakon Titram, V'natata Shalom Ba'aretz V'simkat Olam V'yoshveha V'nomar Amen.
And we continue with our Torah service with the Ashrei, page 181.
Ashrei Yoshvei V'Sechor Alucha Sela, Ashrei HaYom Shekachalo, Ashrei HaYom Sharon Eloha Tehilo Ledavi. Aram Michal HaMelech B'Rapachashim Chali Olam V'Ed B'Chol Yom V'Ed. Tehila Sarno Yadabe Pivi Varech Kol B'Sol Shem Kacholi Olam V'Ed V'Nachnu Nivvarech Yah Me'atov V'Yad Olam Hallelujah. Please rise. Ya Hallelujah Shem Adonai Ki Nishkav Shemo Levado.
Shabbat Shalom. Last week, Mike Myman challenged me, he's not here today, so he's going to have to watch this on the video, to do a drash on my new Fitbit. I'm actually not going to, other than to say, in honor of Mike, that Maimonides teaches that spiritual health doesn't happen unless you have physical health. So get your 10,000 steps, do what you can, get a new Fitbit. Thanks, Mike. Today I want to talk instead about this past month. I've had a series of interesting events and moving events that I wanted to share with you. Yom HaShoah was just a few weeks ago on April 11th. I attended the event at the JCC put on by Mark Lazar called Violins of Hope. I was thrilled that I had a few of our Hebrew High teens that also came with and some parents. Apparently this is a documentary that is available. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix or other channels, but do look for it. It's extremely moving. It is a story of a violin maker in Israel who has made it his mission to restore instruments that survived the Holocaust. Just as we restore Torah scrolls, he restores violins. It makes me emotional thinking about it. It was such a moving movie. The violins were played in concentration camps. As you may or may not know, many of the Jews who were able to play were saved by their skill of being able to play because they played in the camps. Sadly, though, when they played, they were escorting the Jews who were going into the gas chambers, so that the last thing, the Nazis were kind of cruel in this way, that these people would hear would be music played by their own people in these camps. These violins have renewed voice now thanks to this violin maker. Some of the people know who these violins were owned by, and the families actually donated them to this project because the violins themselves have been touring, and they made their U.S. debut recently, and that's what this documentary is about, at a beautiful restored synagogue that's now a concert hall. Not only did the orchestra stand at the end of the performance, but they specifically held up the violins for their ovation. It's just lovely. The other beautiful thing they did with these violins was they brought them to students, to young Jewish students to play on. So imagine you're 12 or 11 and you're told that the violin you're playing on was in the concentration camp. It sort of sounds like that. Thanks, Chuck. The people whose families who knew who owned these violins spoke about these violins as speaking through their music with the voice of their loved ones. It was quite moving. I was honored to get a reading that night. Mark didn't know that when he handed me the reading that it was about a cellist. One of the instruments that was restored was a cello. My father happens to be a cellist, has been a cellist his whole life. Just a couple of years ago, he got to play in Carnegie Hall with his cello. So when I think about the cello, it's automatically about my dad and his devotion to music. And we know the power of music. So these violins are so special that they've been restored. Hopefully they'll tour and come to California. But do try and find this movie, Violins of Hope. You'll cry and it'll be beautiful. Shortly after that, on April 22nd, a group of teens from Hebrew High came to me. Well, they came to me a month before that and said, Rabbi, Robin, we want to watch Schindler's List. I said, you do? They said, yes, but we don't want to watch it alone because we know it's kind of a heavy deal. So we made arrangements to view it at the Steinmetz home on a Sunday afternoon, and a few of the teens came and devoted, it's a long movie, 3.5 hours, 4 hours of their time to watch this film. I'm assuming all of you have seen it, yes? Did you know it's 25 years old this year? I know, right? I remember seeing it in the theater, 25 years old. At a recent They had a panel discussion on the 25th anniversary of the release of the film. Steven Spielberg talked about the experience of making the film and how for some of the actors, some of the parts were quite traumatic. Some of the actors who were in the scene with the women who had to go into the gas chamber had a little breakdown after that. It was a little too real. But the important message from Steven Spielberg is that the Holocaust should be part of the social science and social studies curriculum in every public high school in this country. Now, I don't know if he had heard about the recent study before he made that comment or not, but this year, the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany study came out, and they made the following claims based on their study. More than 9 out of 10 respondents, 93%, believe that all students should learn about the Holocaust in school. 8 out of 10 respondents say it's important to keep teaching about the Holocaust so it should not happen again. Most Americans, 80%, have not visited a Holocaust museum. The majority of Americans polled believe that something like the Holocaust could happen again. A majority of Americans, 58%, believe it could happen again. And then here's the really shocking part. Nearly 1/3 of all Americans, 31%, and more than 4 in 10 millennials believe that substantially less than 6 million Jews were killed, 2 million or fewer, during the Holocaust. And while there were over 40,000 concentration camps and ghettos in Europe during the Holocaust, almost half of Americans, 45%, cannot name a single one. And this percentage is even higher amongst millennials. I think this is shocking. As an educator for 23 years now, just finishing my 23rd year, Holocaust education has been one of my primary focus subjects, starting when I was at Temple Beth David 23 years ago. In fact, the first time I showed Schindler's List was 20 years ago to a group of 7th graders and their parents. And then the final event that happened recently, and I'll make mention that Jean Kravitz is here, our 7th grade teacher, because Jean and I took our 7th graders and their parents this year to the Museum of Tolerance. Now, I take every 7th grade class there. It's an annual field trip event for our religious school students. Have you been there? Has everybody in this room been to the Museum of Tolerance? Yes? If you have not, dare I say it's mandatory. It is absolutely a vital experience that you go. I was even thinking it wouldn't be fun to provide an adult field trip to the museum. I'd be happy to take you all there. You spend the first hour and a half to 2 hours in the section called the Holocaust section. And it literally is a walking tour of the events that led to the Holocaust and to the camps and all of the things that happened there. The second part of the museum is called the Tolerance Center. It's fascinating and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and scary. It talks about our responsibility today to make sure that genocides do not occur again against the Jews or against any group of people. And what we learn in that section is that everybody is prejudiced, that genocides are happening daily right now as we sit here in this room, that people are being murdered and dehumanized on a daily basis all around the world today. I think it's so important that we continue to visit this museum. And if you haven't also been, I've been to the National Museum in Washington, D.C., and of course to Yad Vashem. I'm going back to Israel in October because the last time I was there, I only got like 2 quick hours in Yad Vashem, like not even nearly enough to absorb it all. I'm going to make a day of it this coming fall. I think it's so important for our kids. I want to offer myself to our schools. Like, I'll come and speak. They have to know this information. What do you think? Do you think it could happen again for the Jewish people? Yes? Then we need to do something about it for our young people. I'm proud that I continue to teach this curriculum because the truth is, how can we never forget if we don't know what happened in the first place? And our young people do report to me and to our teachers about anti-Semitism in their public schools, the ones right down the street. Our young people talk to me about the swastikas that are carved into their school desks. They talk about the crass comments that are made by their classmates, often out of ignorance, but we can prevent ignorance through education. We had Peter Levy from the ADL in our Hebrew High program twice this past year, plus in our Knowledge for College program, to help our kids understand how to combat anti-Semitism when they encounter it, how to recognize it, how to understand what's really anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism or anti-Israel or just ignorance, right? This education is so important. This curriculum is so important. I want to thank Jean, since I have the opportunity to publicly thank her for all the effort she put into this Holocaust curriculum, including bringing a survivor to the class to speak to the kids. It's a very important education. I will continue to teach this education for as long as I can. Thank you and have a good Shabbos. Yes, Jack. To the Pacific Symphony? Oh, that's awesome news. Thank you. Do you know when? Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. They've actually restored about 60 violins from the Holocaust now. Sometimes they travel as a group, but I'm imagining that different people perform with them, and they have major violinists use them in memory of the Holocaust survivors. So thank you for letting us know. We'll definitely look out for that so that we can go ourselves. Thank you. And Max is going to lead us in Musaf on page 184.
Yitkala v'yikala shemei Rabba v'amadzira chute v'yamlich malchute v'chayechon v'yomechon U'chayetecho Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala Ubizman Kari